Hello, my fellow Croms. Come to you today with another installment in Cromwellathon, where we are reading the final book of Hilary Mantel's Thomas Cromwell trilogy. I assume it's the final book. I'll let you know when I get to the end. This week I am doing part 2, which is Augmentation, Five Wounds, Vile Blood, and which basically takes us to sort of around the halfway mark in the novel. So if you are not at that point in the novel, look away, look away. I guess I should, for my thumbnail, I guess I'll put the nice cover on, though you can see how hard I am on books. I never put covers on because I gook up the books and stuff like that. I'm not gentle on my books, and all these hardback stuff, they all suck up stuff versus nice smooth paperbacks. I think the big thing that jumps out with me at the first part of this, jumping past Augmentations, is when Cromwell goes to see Dorothea, the daughter of Wolsey, who's been left to be kind of raised and stuff like that at a nunnery, and he goes to her, and he gets what I have to say is probably the biggest hammer blow I've seen him get past the death of his wife and children, which is that he comes into her, and he's very kind of fumbly. It's almost like he's a young man again. And I mean, he goes to the point of like, well, we're shutting down all the monasteries and the nunneries and the convents and stuff like that. And like, if you've got trouble, it's like, well, I could marry you. Which he says, he kind of blurts out. He doesn't even mean to say it, but it's like he really wants to continue honoring what this great master of his, Cardinal Wolsey. But she's like, yeah, I hate your guts, and it's not because you are shutting down all this stuff. It's because you betrayed my father, and he understood everything, she says. He understood you betrayed him. He gapes at her. He, Lord Cromwell, he who is never surprised. This is something that just completely shakes his foundations. He stumbles out of this meeting, and he is weeping. He's talking to them, and he's starting to like get recriminations to himself. It's like, I should have gone up to Yorkshire with him. I should have been with him when he died. I should not have let the king get in my way. My lord, Richie says, his tone hushed. The king is not in our way. He is our way. It's like, whoa, do not even say that stuff out loud, my lord. It's like, he's talking about just brushing the king away because he should have been with, this sudden kind of onrush of guilt. And I mean, this does seem to really, really, really get him. He shakes his head. Dorothea has rewritten his story. She has made him strange to herself. Who could have told her I betrayed her father, except her father himself? It's like, and I find that interesting, that idea of like rewriting his history, because indeed, Hilary Mantel is in a lot of ways it's her fictional attempt at rewriting the history of Thomas Cromwell, not changing the facts, but changing the interpretation of the facts. One interpretation might be being loyal to Wolsey, beyond maybe perhaps caution and reason, whereas another rewriting is a mercenary man who betrayed his mentor as soon as it was the right proper moment to, that's within the book, and that's without the book, with just the meta history of that. This is in a section called Five Wounds, and it's like, 5 wounds, wife, children, master, Dorothea with her needle straight between his ribs, one withheld. A man might survive them if they were evenly spaced. He knew and he knew the direction they would come from, which is, there's also that interesting thing of, he's had 4 wounds, one withheld. It's like withheld or is coming soon. I think it was Jason talked about betrayal. There's definitely this specter of betrayal that kind of hangs over this book, where various members of the household, we start looking at, wondering, I think Tilly also mentioned this, of like, who's going to be the one who's going to betray their master? Who's going to betray him? Who's going to betray him first? Though Wolsey never speaks to him now, because there's always the dead, and they're always speaking to him. But though Wolsey never speaks to him now, Since he has come back from Shaftesbury, he is without company or advice. The cardinal bounces in the clouds, where the faithful departed giggle at our miscalculations. The dead are magnified in our eyes, while we to them appear as ants. They look down at us from the mists like mystic beasts on spires, and they sail above us like flags. And it's like there's that separation. It used to be, Wolsey was in the room with him, but now it's like there's this separation, and he's giggling. There's a kind of this horrible detachment that is coming through. So yeah, there's this whole thing of Dorothea kind of rewrites his life, shakes him. It's like, was I a betrayer? It's like he's not positive. It's like there's always these glimmers of like, am I fooling myself? I'm this human, I'm this being in a certain kind of a fixed point, but am I so blinkered I don't see what's happening? And there's this idea of how we see the world is through others. And I mean, throughout this novel, we've had Cromwell checking with people, like, what are the rumors? What are they saying about me? Because getting these reflections back, however distorted, kind of give him information about other people, but it also gives him information about himself. Or stuff like Henry at some point, he remarks, Henry wants to be known as the mirror of justice, but perhaps he's only just going to be known as Henry the bad leg because his wounded leg. Of course, we know from that kind of historical viewpoint, he's going to be known as Henry VIII and his 6 wives. That's going to be his in some way one of his defining features. I mean, there's all the things that happen in his reign, but there's that image of his 6 wives and what's happened to those wives and what kind of a man he was to them is going to resonate through history in a way I don't think Henry would have ever known of. Now, the big kind of external event that's happening within this section is the Pilgrimage of Grace, which is a rebellion that's starting, which is at least given the cloak of kind of popular uprising of people are rising up and they want to drain the vile blood. It's one of the final section is they want to drain the vile blood from the King Council. The vile blood in this case being seems to be a clear dig at Cromwell, but they want to drain the vile blood from the council. However, they also want to restore like kind of the ancient old nobility to the council instead, which seems to be some other political actors would be pushing that. Make restitution to the church and basically kind of bring back the Catholic Church, bring back the Pope in that section. So at least looking at this through Cromwell's eyes, this is very much cast as this is a political play by the old families, and most notably Margaret Pole, who we've seen earlier in these pages. But others too. The old families are obviously behind the scenes, encouraging stuff, allowing popular foment to happen. And I mean, at the same time, they're actually being like, you're shattering traditions and ways of life that have been going on for centuries. And indeed, at a certain point, Cromwell's like, well, I told you so we shouldn't have actually tried to push through all this stuff as bills in Parliament. We should have done it piecemeal and quietly and basically kind of slowly raised the water temperature and drifted things away versus trying to make a big slam down, because that is another thing that is allowed all this great stuff to happen. There's a strange way that the Pilgrimage of Grace, though, led by this one-eyed lawyer, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. This one-eyed lawyer asked to lead this rebellion. In some ways, it's improved things between Henry and Cromwell, because I take it ill to be instructed by the folk of Lincolnshire, which is one of the most brute and beastly shires in the realm. How do they presume to dictate what man I keep about me? Let them understand this: when I choose a humble man for my counselor, he is no more humble. Big bold caps on that. So strangely enough, the worse things have gotten here, the more pressed Henry has gotten, the more he is kind of latched on to Cromwell. But you have to wonder at a certain point, he just, as people keep on warning him, he'll hate, the more he needs you, the more he'll hate you. So yeah, I think that's everything I have to say this week on part 2 of The Mirror in the Light. Really enjoying it. Having pauses in between sections to read other stuff. Just easy as we go, but still quite enjoying myself. Not as pulled in as deep this time, but going well. More videos later.